Hey guys, welcome back. Today is a day that we're going to talk about love. You know what needs more love? Well, besides me for the allergies around my neighborhood today, but our games. We all have games that we love, and sometimes we feel like they just don't get enough love. So today I'm going to talk about the top 10 games that I believe personally need some more love. Coming in at number 10 is Dice Masters, specifically Dungeons and Dragons. Now, Marvel Dice Masters has created tons of iterations of the Marvel characters itself to play in this game, and it's done like a Yu-Gi-Oh spinoff, and I think the latest stuff that it's doing now is the Dungeons and Dragons into a third set. Now, I know that Dice Masters is a popular game. What it is if you're not familiar with it, it's a team building game where you like a deck building, but you use dice. So you build a team of like your 8 heroes versus your opponent, and these cards have different powers and different strengths and toughnesses, and you're trying to battle and knock each other out of the game based upon life points, 20 life points. And what happens is you start off with some generic energy, and you purchase these dice, and eventually these dice will work its way back into this bag, and when you pull it out and roll it, you might roll a character, and then you can field it, and then you have that creature onto your field. I love the particular Dungeons and Dragons aspect of this game because it gives me a feeling, seeing all the monsters from Dungeons and Dragons, and it kind of gives me that feel of the attacking and blocking with special powers of like Magic the Gathering. So this is a perfect hybrid game for me, and Dice Masters is a popular game, but of course it's not the level of a lot of these other games, and I'm sure everybody's heard of it, but if you've never had a chance to play it, it's really an opportunity. I just feel like this game really needs some more love. Because it's, especially with this ramping up, I feel like the powers and the abilities with the experience on the characters are so much more than the other Dice Masters version. I just don't hear about it enough. And, to me, it needs some more love. Okay, so let's move on. Coming in at number 9 is Photosynthesis. Now, this is a great abstract game where we're all building trees together. There's this beautiful board, and you have the sundial that goes around that casts light, and it can also cast shade to block trees. And when these trees get energy from the light, it gives you light points, which is your currency to either grow your trees or to plant new trees. And when a tree gets big enough, you chop it down or retire it, and and then you get to score points for that. Now, Photosynthesis is just a gorgeous, beautiful looking game. It's abstract, it's easy to play, it plays 2 to 4 players, and even though everybody who plays it in the community says, it seems like to get love, but on the bigger scale, I still, it just kind of came, and then people don't really talk about it anymore. They'll go, oh yeah, I remember that, that's good. But Photosynthesis is really, really a great game, and I definitely think that it needs some more love. All right, let's move on. Okay, coming in at number 8 is one of my little favorite games to play, especially with my group. When we get a bigger group, this plays 2 to 6 players. This is called Ethnos. Now, Ethnos is a kind of area control game. Also, you can get points by playing out these cards for your tribe. You play these out, and these bands of cards, the number you play, score your points at the end of the age. But during it, you get to put control tokens into these areas. And by manipulating how much these are worth, because it's random at the beginning, you score points for these controls. So it's actually a very simple game. And some people could look at it like, wow, this could be a gateway game. In fact, I kind of think it is. Some people think it's a little next level, but it really isn't, because the mechanics are so easy. Because on your turn, you either draw a card from one of 2 areas, the draw pile or whatever's out in the common area. So you just pick it up, or you play a band from your hand. And then if you play your band, you place a control token, or you'll just, activate another little sideboard or something. And that's how simple it is. You play a band or you draw a card, and then the depth of the game beyond that is, may take a few rounds to click, go, oh, wow, I really need to try to control some stuff here, or to promote the orc board or something. But it's so super easy to teach. The board is ugly as all get out. I'm thinking about just like kind of hacking it and putting like some miniatures for my Dungeons and Dragons for each tribe, so a person can have and just put in the area. But they have these stackable things that work pretty well. But Ethnos is a game that some people just kind of look at and they're like, it doesn't interest me. The artwork of the box is beautiful, but everything else is just kind of average to drab with the board. But this game just still, I feel, doesn't get enough love for how easily it plays, how easily you teach, and how deep it can go into, for how the strategies wise. So anyway, that is my number 8, Ethnos. And coming in at number 7 is an old game back from like 1999 called Star Wars Episode 1 Clash of the Lightsabers. So basically in this game, it's just a card-driven game. It's hand management and making a few choices. This is a great, easy, fast 2-player game that's easy to teach. And basically you're using numbers and special powers. And you're just trying to, you kind of pre-plan based upon your hand where you want to lay cards out to duel, right? And the whole object of the game is to make, you both have a pewter figure. One is Darth Maul and one is Qui-Gon Jinn. And you're trying to advance them to the 5th place on the track. So you're trying to, move up 4 spots. And whoever's the first one to reach that last spot wins the duel. But within it are mini battles. So you have 3 cards that you lay out blind, trying to guess what your opponent's going to do, and then you flip up the first one, and then you play cards from your hand, and you either and eventually whoever has the more power wins. But you can look at it thinking, hey, I'm going to lose, or maybe it's smarter, I win the power because I know that my next card's coming up here. I could still win 2 out of 3 to win this particular battle. And you're like, okay, so you're allowed to concede. So by conceding, it lets you save those cards in your hand for a future battle. Or there's a lot of strategy in it just for how simple and quick the game plays. So no one ever talks about this game because it's so old. But it's one of those games I wish that they would do a reprint on and make out some nicer cards. Everything looks great. The artwork looks great. The figures are fantastic. It's just the cardstock itself is just kind of okay. I wish they would make it with the newer tighter materials in it that play with a lot of the modern games now. But anyway, coming in at number 7 is Star Wars Clash of the Lightsabers. Okay, coming in at number 6 is World's Fair 1893, or it might be 1893 World's Fair. This is a game where each of us play promoters trying to get an event or events into the World's Fair. And the nice thing about this game is it's easy to play, of course, and you can play 2 to 4 players, and basically it almost like your board is like a little Ferris wheel set up flat down on the ground like a cardboard, but you have these different events that you want to promote, like it might be agriculture or science or whatever. Anyway, they're different colored cards. What happens is you place your supporters out, like, basically your workers, and you put them on one of the areas, and then you take the 2 cards that are represented there. Now, this does 2 things. Your 2 workers are on an area that if you happen to have the most of, that you can promote and put that event in for you, which scores you points. But the cards that you just took are what help you promote the things that you're on. So they're not always lined up. So you kind of have to plan ahead or where you want to try to control things, to put your workers out. So you got to think ahead a little bit. Or you might just go, I just want to build up on a bunch of these cards and then hope that I can get in those spots later. And plus there's other things too. You can get points from getting these random tickets, like tickets to ride the Ferris wheel. But it's just the first time I played this, I was like, I really like this mechanic. It's kind of neat. It's smooth. It's very simple. You put these things out, you take the cards, and then you try to plot where you're going to go, and then you just score to see who wins and make choices. And, it's a great family game because some people might be turned off by the Ethnos or whatever because it's like, well, that's got monsters in it. I don't want to see that, which obviously doesn't bother me. Also, the last point to make on this game is interesting. If you like factoids, if you have those people that just love to read stuff about history or whatever, it actually talks about the events. Like it gives you a fact about events that were in the fair from 1893 on the cards. So those are always fun factoids to read, or factoids is probably the wrong word. But anyway, little interest points. So anyway, my number 6 that needs more love is World's Fair 1893. Okay, coming in, my number 5 is Explorers of the North Sea. And now we all are familiar with Raiders of the North Sea, but Explorers is the second game in the series, and it just doesn't get enough love for how good it is. Now, me and my group, we play Raiders a lot. We play Explorers some, but it just seems like everybody likes more of the super competitive nature that Raiders seems to bring. But this game doesn't get talked about much, and if you're like me and the name of the game is Explorers, you're actually placing out these hexagonal tiles, and you have to kind of fit them on these lands. And you travel with your Vikings to these lands and grab your, livestock, cows, I call them chickens, but, and bring them back and put them on, and you can, you score points by getting, your livestock back to the mainland. And then you also can fight other enemy ships out there, rival clans or whatever they call them in the game. But there's a lot of things going on, and I like the idea of how you can, and it also has the control, like once you build an island, and if you put like enough, you put one of your village things or whatever on it, basically like a control marker, if you end up controlling the most in that area, you will score points for how big that landmass is. So it's actually a really fun game. Now this plays 2 to 4 players. There might be a single player version too, but I highly recommend playing about 3 players at max, because 4 players, see, the game is built on an engine where there's only so many tiles and the game ends on the tiles. So if you play a 2-player game, it's really neat because you have a ton of tiles, so you got plenty of time to try to figure out where you're going, what you're doing. 3-player game, it's a little tighter, but it plays just about right. 4-player game is fine too. It's a fun game, but the game will end sooner than you expect because you only get, you get reduced amount of turns because of the players. But this game hardly ever gets talked about like the other flagship of it, Raiders of the North Sea. But I highly recommend that you play Explorers. It just doesn't get enough love, and that's what I'm here for. So more love to my number 5 game, Explorers of the North Sea. Coming in at number 4 is one of my favorite games. It's Yamatai by Days of Wonder. Now this is a beautiful, brilliant game, and it's by the same people who designed 5 Tribes, which is really high on my list if you've ever watched my top 10 list. Now, Yamatai never gets love. I actually made like a 3-part video series on this channel if you want to watch it, on the setup, how to play, and then I go over all the little specialist tiles and the game tiles itself to get people more informed about it. But this game, I know it's Days of Wonder, they always do high production and it's going to do well, but I don't know what turns people off of it. I understand it's not quite as thinky as like 5 Tribes, but I feel like it's nice because it's lighter, because you may not be able to get some family members to play 5 Tribes because they don't want to sit there all day. In this game, you do have to think a little bit ahead about your decision, but it's not as thick as the other. But the one thing I do like about it, probably better than 5 Tribes, is in 5 Tribes you have the gens, but you have to pay for the power each time. In this game, you have specialists where they're up all the time. So like as soon as you get a specialist, you can use their power on your turn each time. It's active, and that's a nice ability there. But anyway, I don't know how much more I can say about it except for it's a great game. If you've never played Yamatai, please play it. I just want you, Yamatai, out there to have more love, mainly for the Queen Himiko on the cover, because she seems like that she loves everybody. So let's just love her back, everyone. All right, more love for my number 4 games that need more love, Yamatai. All right, coming in at number 3 is The Godfather, Corleone's Empire. Sorry, I know that's a horrible Godfather imitation there, but this is a game that's not spoken about very much. It came out, there's a lot of hype behind it, but people, I think the reason why this didn't get more love is because maybe there's not as much either monsters, because that's really popular, or conflict. Like, it has miniatures that are great in the game, but the miniatures are just mobsters. So I think that the reason why, people didn't, come to it is like, yeah, these are fine miniatures, but they're just, people, instead of these cool, massive things with tentacles or claws or whatever coming off of them. But basically, in The Godfather, you're trying to become the next Don. And in this, you do some area control with putting your thugs and stuff out to shake down businesses to get rewards. And then you basically, it's important because you take the more money you get in the game, you try to get it into your suitcase. And if you put it into your suitcase, that counts as points. Every $5 worth 5 points. $3 bill is worth 3 points, and so on and so forth. And then you're trying to also do jobs. So the more items that you collect, with your guns and booze or whatever it is, and you cash them in and you do these different jobs, they have effects in the game. And when you complete a job, you put it in there, and they're color coded, and you get points based upon getting the most jobs done. And it really is a fun game. It's just that a lot of people, when they look at it and go like, oh, can I play that, or can I play this game here? Also designed by Eric Lang. A lot of people tend to go to Blood Rage, which the thing is, it's just not as conflicting as these other games. Like Rising Sun feels like you're just crunching in, it's real deep and meaty, and then Blood Rage, you have all this drafting. Well, this is a different type of game, and I just wish that it got more love. So coming in at number 3 is The Godfather, Corleone's Empire. Coming in at number 2 is Clockwork Wars. I forgot the designer on this game, but I played this from my buddy Conrad. He'd brought it up, and we started playing this game, and it took a little bit to kind of get through the rule book, but once we kind of figured it out, I was like, wow, what is this? Now, the boards are kind of pre-set up based upon suggestions, or you can go online, and they use these hexagons, and they all come together, and there's basically like 5 or 6 different things. There's 3 areas that are used for scoring, which are like natural resources, like trees and rivers and that sort of thing, and by controlling them, you get the chunk of your points, although you can get out points in the game. You move across this basically like time track, like Champions of Midgard, like there's 8 turns. Well, in this, there's only so many turns, but then scoring comes up only in, certain points, of the game. And you have these special units, like 30 of them, and you move them out onto the board, trying to control areas, to try to use force to go up against other people. You can try to each tile has a special power. If it's not scoring, it'll be like you can, like during a battle, you might be able to move people over from a tower or something. I can't remember the exact terminology on that. The thing is, this game moves and just feels really nice and fun. I don't know if I'd use the word crunchy, like, there is some crunchiness in the brain, but it's also like the board feels crunchy because it's only so big. And they suggest, you play these certain boards maybe based upon the certain players that you have. But there's a spy board, so you can, instead of, if you don't want to put workers out on the board, you can move your workers over and they become a spy on the spy board, which at these different times during the game, they will give you different bonuses or abilities. And at the beginning of the game, at the beginning of each turn, you choose which power that you're going to enact, and only you can choose that, and then the other person can't. And then, of course, you pass who goes first player token and that sort of thing. But there's like 3 monsters in the base game that are miniatures that you can use. And I think the only reason why this game doesn't get talked about as much, or it doesn't get enough love, is because the workers you use themselves are just like little cylinders. And I mean, they're fine. And the art on the hexagon board pieces, modular board, are beautiful. They even have 2-sided. If you have trouble looking at it, you can flip them over to a simplistic side. But since those are not like miniatures, I think that probably turned people away, because if you turn them into like little representatives from your people, kind of like in Lords of Hellas, like little miniatures like that would be perfect for it. But unfortunately, probably design production to save money, because they use the artwork and all these other little things going to it. It probably was a little too expensive to put that in. But if they had put that in, that may have given the game enough buzz which it needed to elevate it to the next level, and I think people would have just went bonkers over it for that. I can't deny I'm also a miniatures fan, so I'm guilty as well. But anyway, this game does not get enough love, and if you ever get a chance, you should play it with a friend. Like I said, it's a little crunchy, but it's oh man, it's a ton of fun. Okay, my number 2, obviously, Clockwork Wars. Coming in at my number 1 is a game by, I think it's Space Cowboys. It's actually right here. I forgot. It's Hit Z Road. Now, this game is interesting because I found this at a Barnes & Noble, and it was in their reduced bin. And some of you might go, well, there's a reason why it's in a reduced bin. It's no good. Well, no, this game is fantastic. Every time I brought this out to show people how to play, they're like, wow, this game's really cool. And actually, this game, I feel like this has like kind of a double thematic thing going on. Now, most people probably overlook this game because, oh, by the way, Hit Z Road, Z stands for zombies if you know nothing about it, and it's a dice chucker. And so you're trying to, basically you're following, okay, here's the story. Zombie apocalypse hits. And so this boy, you're following his story kind of through the family, of him and his family making it through it, right? And so basically you're trying to control 1 of 4 teams of survivors to make it to the end of the game. Now, if you win the game, that's great. But if you just survive, I feel like you're a winner, because I've had trouble just surviving it to the end. So basically what happens is, thematically, the kid finds this box called, it was originally called Hit the Road, right? But it's crossed out and he put Z. So everything in this box are like cards that like he found on his journey, like some poker cards from one place or some, cards from here. Like even the first player, second player, third player badges which they go are like randomly placed. Like one is a name badge somebody found, he found at a diner somewhere, and one was of a card or something else. But the whole thing is, it's like a 10-year-old or 13-year-old kid built it or whatever, built this game. Like he took this game and he modified it and using pieces, and they're representative by the things that he found. But also, as you're playing it, it kind of tells a little bit of the story of, what's happened to him and his family along the way. And this game has an auction bidding mechanism. So at the beginning, you have 3 different types of resources, and you're trying to choose the best path for you to go. And if you outbid everybody else, then you get to take the path you want to take, which could be less dangerous, or maybe it's worth more victory, or maybe it gives you more supplies. But the problem is, you need these supplies somewhere, sometime in the game to survive. And if you don't have them, you're going to be in trouble. So it's a really great management resource game at the beginning. And then you have the dice chucker. When the zombies come, you have to decide, do you want to waste some bullets to try to shoot them before they get to you? Or do you want to just wait till they get to you and just go ahead and take them on in melee? And then you're like, wow, it looks like I'm going to lose one of my guys. Do I spend an adrenaline to save them? Or do I save that adrenaline for later in the game? There's a lot of choices to make. And just watching how the dice roll and how the dice outcome comes, everybody around the table, every time I've played, there's always at least 2 or 3 points where there's a big ruckus and people just laugh or go, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened. So don't let this unassuming box fool you, because this is just chock full of goodness. Like I said, so finishing up at number 1, my number 1 game is Hit Zero. Fantastic game. Never gone badly for me. Thank you so much for watching the Dice Matrix. My name's E.T., and until I see you next time, keep the dice rolling.